Unvention. If you follow the channel for a while, you know we do a lot of print and play roll and writes coverage on here. So we are always looking for ones that kind of have something that stands out, that's something different about them, something that makes us really, be like, yeah, this is going to be a cool entry into that realm. Does this one have it in? Well, stick around after break. I'll show you the regular mode and I'll show you the solo mode, and then I'll tell you why I think you might want to back it. All right, so let me go over quick how to play Unvention International Exhibition. So up here is your name and where you're going to be doing your totals for your score. Here's your journals, here's your workshops, here are your inventions and your tools. To set up, you're going to want to have everyone have a sheet. I have mine laminated, so I have a dry or a wet erase marker. You are going to be grabbing 5 6-sided dice, putting them in the center. You're going to roll a die. It is a 1, so you're going to look up here and you're going to give a circle to the one that matches the number. Finally, you're going to prepare workshops. You're going to remove a total of 2 parts, which means you are going to do this whole thing twice. So there is an option where there is this website where you are going to spin, and then you would look at that workshop and you'd cross off all instances of 3s like so. And then once you're done with that, you would then spin it again. In this instance, looking up here and crossing off all instances of the 4s. Alternatively, if you don't have access to the internet or don't want to use that, you will instead grab 2 dice and you are going to roll them. So in this instance, you rolled a 5. You're then going to place the dice here and move it around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would be the workshop. You would then roll the dice, and then whatever number comes up the most is what you would cross off, in this instance of 5. And you would do that one more time, again, removing 2 tools. Then you're ready to begin. So a round is going to consist of rolling and grouping the dice, journaling, doing your workshop, building once per turn, and then inventing. So when you roll and group dice, you're just going to roll them. You are then going to grab any that are the same. So in this instance, 3, group those together, and then any that are different and group those. So in this instance, we have 2 groups, a pair of 3s, and then 1, 2, and 5. Had I rolled a 5, I would have the 3s, I'd have the 5s, and I'd have the 1s. Each player then is going to choose one of these groups, and they are going to write those numbers in one of the journals. You choose one of the journals, and you're going to write all those numbers in there. This does have sudoku type rules, so you cannot write the same number in the same row, the same column, or in the same little square. So I could go, we'll go 1, 2, and 5. After you write those, you're going to grab a different group. So in this instance, the 3s, you are going to choose a workshop, and you are going to cross off or circle 2 3s. So if I went to this workshop, I could circle this 3 here and that 3 there, or I could on that 3, or these question marks are wild and you can do any of those. Once everyone's done with that, you then can move into build. You can do this once per turn. If you build, you are going to, up here it shows you spend 2 wrenches. You get wrenches by filling rows or columns. Right now we have no wrenches, so we can't do any building. But for an example, so say I had, we'll go 3, 5, 6, and 4. So I now have these 2 wrenches, and we'll say we're a little bit further in the game, and we have that filled in there. So when it comes to the build, I can go ahead and spend my 2 wrenches to build. When you build, you are going to draw a line connecting adjacent circles. So I can go there to there, there, and there. I've now built this. If you look up here at your tools, it denotes a shape. If you are the first to connect something in that specific shape, you are going to circle the first one. Everyone else will cross it off unless they accomplish it in the same exact round you do, in which case you both earn it. In the future rounds, they can earn it. They would just get the lesser points, and then you now have this ability available to you. But you've built now. From this point, you can now get into invent. This is optional. You do not have to move this over, but if you don't move it over now, you cannot do it in a future turn. You are going to take the shape you did, and you are going to put it into one of these inventions over here in that exact style. You can't turn it or rotate it. Doesn't matter with this shape, but you cannot typically turn it, rotate it, unless you have unlocked the spanner like we have. So I can then take that shape and we could just say enter it right here. If it is the first time using an item from one of those workshops, you will then circle this section right there for the one that it is. And then next time if I used one from the purple, I would circle the purple. And that is how the round flows. You roll the dice, you fill in a journal, you circle some numbers, you possibly build, and then you invent. So getting into some of the other rules. If for some reason you cannot journal, you are instead going to just put an X in a square. You're then going to look over and X out any of those wrenches, and you're going to X out this idea at the top of the journal because you're not going to be able to complete your journal because you have the X. Same thing with those rows or columns. Alternatively, if you are able to fill up a journal, you are going to circle this idea and you're going to put it into one of the inventions. The other way you get ideas into inventions is, so let's say I had this shape right here and then I built it, made this little square, and then I moved the square over into the Motorworks. You'll see it fully encompasses an idea here. So we would then come over and circle that in there. All right, so once one player has filled in exactly one journal, you are going to move to the end of the day, which would be the end of the day for Friday. At the end of each day, you are going to see if you have any inventions you are going to submit. You submit inventions if they are completed. So let me complete one really quick and I'll show you how this works. All right, so it's the end of Friday and we are going to score this one. Ignore this, I didn't fill all this in for this. This is just an example for the scoring. So you are going to look at the variety bonus. We have 3 different ones, so you're going to circle here where it shows 3. This is the first day, Friday, and you completed it on Friday. You then are going to look at its individual scoring mechanic up here. This wants the different number of mechanisms. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we put a 5 here. We then multiply it by the amount of ideas in there. There's only 2, so that is 10. You then total this up, so 10, 27, and that is my total for that one. The Motorworks down here wants a number of repeated shapes. So what that means is if I had this one, then here, this, and that, I'm going to look to see which shape was repeated the most, which is this one. So it's 1, 2, 3. So that would actually be a 3 for that one. The arc engine wants different size mechanisms. So like this would be 1 size, that would be 2 sizes, 3 sizes. This would not be a different size because it's 2. Then once a second journal of someone is filled, you move on to Saturday. When someone has filled all 3, you move on to Sunday, and then that is the end of the game. I will note, if I fill in my journal and then my opponent fills in their first journal, we do not move to the end of a day. Someone needs to have 2 full journals on their specific page, not 2 between the players. So at the end of the game, at the end of Sunday, you will again kind of submit it, see if any of them are completed. After that, any completions that were not invented, you are still going to score for their whole different mechanism up here, the variety bonus, but you are not going to score the completion bonus. You're also going to get bonuses for which tools you have unlocked and at what levels. You'll total those up here. Total points, most points is the winner. So that is the basics of the multiplayer one. Let me briefly explain how the solo one works, and then after that, we'll get into my thoughts. All right, so here are your sheets for the solo play. So I will say, typically you're going to want to print up 3 sheets of these. I have only printed up 1 for now to kind of show you how these go. So you'll have a spot up here for notes. You're going to be making notes kind of from day to day to kind of let yourself know what you're working on, certain things you may unlock, because how the game is going to play is you're going to be playing basically 3 games of Unvention. You're going to be playing basically a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday, each one on their own separate sheets. You can play it all in the same day. You can go over multiple days. It's up to you, but this is going to kind of be for powers you unlock and so forth. Then you still have your normal workshops. You have your journals. This is your day track. You have your daily challenges and your daily setup. So again, a lot of this is going to be very similar to the multiplayer one. You're going to randomly remove 2 parts from the workshop. You're going to skip on Friday, which is basically you're going to carry over any notes you have written on the daily sheet from the previous day. And if you're playing easy or medium, you're going to mark off any daily challenges you have faced in previous days. After that, based on your difficulty level, you're going to roll for your daily challenges. If you're playing on easy, you're not going to roll all. You're going to roll once on Saturday, once on Sunday. Medium is 1, 1, 2. Hard is 1, 1, and 1 plus 1 plus 1. So they just keep compounding. But you would simply roll, look to see where you're at. This is 3. You're demotivated, so you'll circle that. And you're going to get -1 on all end of day scoring inventions, it looks like. But basically, you each one kind of gives you something that you're having to overcome that day. So you're going to basically be playing the same as normal. You're going to be rolling the 5 dice. You are going to be grouping them by likes and unlikes. You're going to be journaling. You're going to be filling in your workshop. With the journaling, that's where it's going to get slightly different. When you unlock a wrench, you are going to circle it on this day track. You're going to be going along, and then once you get to these specific ones that have this little die in it, that is when you're going to check for end of day. You are going to take one of your die, you're going to roll it. You're going to compare it to the number at the bottom. If it is equal to or greater than that, your day is over. So this is a 4 on 6, so we would continue going along with the day. Again, circling more and more as we go. The other big change is this invention sheet. So again, when you create your mechanism, you can move it into an invention. You can only move it into inventions that you have access to. So you'll see you have access to these first ones because they have no arrows pointing to them. From that point on is you can only work on an invention if you have completed the previous invention and thus coloring in this arrow. So for example, if this invention had been completed, I would then color in the arrow. So once these arrows are filled in, you now can work on these inventions. You'll notice some of them have the little idea icon on it. Idea icons are going to work similar to the other way. So when you finish a journal and you get an idea token, you can then cross off an idea token anywhere on the board. And then once you build this invention and fill in this arrow, you would have access to this one because you have done the idea token as well. In addition to crossing off the ideas there, you also can circle them on inventions down here. And it will also work again if you encompass one of them and then draw that shape into an invention. You will then also get that idea to be able to mark off on your sheet. The inventions over here do have different abilities. You have this sun one here. That is going to be for end of day scoring. You have this little wrench one that gives you an action you can do by spending wrenches. A lightning bolt happens instantaneously. This little arrow is an ongoing. So like this one is building these, costs only 1 wrench. So that's an ongoing ability. You have this flag that is end of game scoring. And so those are the different ones that are on your sheet. So when you trigger the end of day, you are going to look at your completed inventions that have the whole end of day scoring, and you're going to score those writing in the total on the specific day you are at. When you get to the end of game, you're going to do the same thing for your end of game scoring. You're going to score for those and then put that in there, total it all up for your score, and see how well you did. So that is the basics of the solo version. So we will now go ahead and get into what my thoughts are on both versions of the game. So there you have it. That is the basics of both versions of Unvention. So I will start off by saying if this is something that interests you, go ahead and hit the link down below to check out the campaign now. So to me, what sets this apart from a lot of the other print and play roll and writes is that there's these three distinct puzzles, and they both kind of test your brain in different ways and make you have to think and plan ahead and really kind of visualize where all the different shapes are going to go. Because the journaling is just that one normal puzzle. The Sudoku, if you do Sudoku, you're used to it. Sudoku is so normalized now. Everyone basically knows the rules of Sudoku, columns, rows, all that. So that's one puzzle. That's fine. That can be a brain burner in and of itself, depending on how the numbers on the dice come up. You then move into the workshops and having to circle those numbers. Well, when you're circling those, you're going to want to make sure you're circling them in a way that's going to make a shape that is good for your inventions or good to unlock a tool. So you're really having to kind of manage which workshops are you circling numbers in? Where are you going to go with those so you can best optimize the shape? And then once you get over to your inventions, being able to fit those shapes in there exactly. Possibly doing that variety to get the most points. Each one has the whole different scoring criteria. One wants different size mechanisms. One wants repeated mechanisms. One wants the most number of mechanisms. So maybe you're putting small ones in there. But if you're doing a lot of small ones, then your opponent has time to build up big ones and just start filling those in to all the other spots. So like I said, there's just those three really intricate puzzles of trying to journal and make sure you're planning ahead and leaving yourself spots there for numbers, getting into your workshop and planning there and distributing your circles all throughout those instead of focusing on one, because then you're not getting that variety bonus. And then moving on to the inventions and really being able to hopefully, jigsaw those pieces in. Hopefully, if you've unlocked a spanner, you're able to rotate them, but otherwise, you're having to move them exactly over, which adds a whole nother layer of difficulty to it. Then when you move into the solo game does a good job of keeping the majority of the essence of the game, keeping all the, you're used to it, the Sudoku puzzle, you're used to playing ahead, but now you have all these different inventions that have these different shapes, and which ones do you want to unlock for the powers, for the scoring. Then once you have a scoring that you can unlock, trying to focus on those scorings and work on those on the days. That's why that note section is very helpful, so you can have it right there on your sheet and not have to keep going back and forth, but writing those notes. What possible daily challenge is going to come up that's going to hinder you, and then how are you going to best utilize what you have available to overcome that daily challenge. So this one is continuing that trend of using multiple dice. You have 5 dice. It's the new trend of, really wanting to get your brain working and thinking, and not just being some blanket, roll the dice and just fill them in certain spots and then see what happens. This one has you really trying to utilize and think, how are these dice going to best work for me? It's not going to be a simple roll them, just plug and play and move on with your day. This one is going to have you really kind of focusing on your sheet, because you're not going to be able to just quickly grab those dice at the beginning when you're filling in your journal, because you want to see, well, is that group going to better work out in my workshops? So you are having to manage both of those even when you're grabbing your dice. So it kind of adds that whole little, like I said, that element of strategy and so much planning ahead with it. And with the solo play being 3 games, but then having that almost random end of the game where you're getting to those dice and you're rolling, kind of a press your luck, kind of a whole thing like that, kind of simulates the multiplayer one, in that, yeah, you can kind of see when your opponent might be filling up a journal, but it might come quicker than you think. Especially if we were playing with like 3-4 players, it'd be hard to keep eyes on their sheets and your sheet. So sometimes that end game is going to just sneak up on you in a multiplayer game. So that element there of rolling the dice does a very good job of simulating that. And that also will kind of help keep the game possibly a little bit shorter, because you aren't going to be going and filling all 3 journals necessarily. You could be ending the game sooner and then working on the next one and being able to do that. Being able to possibly spread over 3 days to be thematic. So there is a lot of cool, those little intertwining elements into this one. So that is Unvention. Like I said, if this is something you are interested in, down below there is a link to the campaign so you can go and check it out now. Down there is also ways you can help support the channel. You can go ahead and hit like, subscribe, comment, share, or ring the bell. Another thing you can do is you can join our Patreon. you can hit up our Ko-fi, or you can join the channel with the join button down below. That gives you exclusive member perks, such as seeing videos early and certain videos we release just to our members. And with that, I'll say, get out and create.